I'd like to introduce Ray Lees, and he's the Planning Program Manager with the Tri-County Regional Planning Commission, supporting strategies for transportation, environmental, and land use. He's got 36 years of experience as principal of 4 architectural engineering national practices based in Illinois and Arizona. The projects have a total point-in-time construction value of nearly $3 billion. As far as accomplishments he's had, the Bob Michel Bridge deck replacement and pathway project for $24.6 million that we're going to hear about today. Peoria Riverfront Museum and Caterpillar Visitor Center. The Peoria Civic Center expansion. General W.A. Downing Peoria International Airport Terminal. He has a Bachelor in Fine Arts and Industrial Design from the University of Illinois. And he's a member of the Peoria Rotary Club of Peoria, as he's been president, vice president, board of directors, and foreign exchange student officer. He's a member of the City of Peoria Planning Commission, past commissioner and chairman. City of Peoria Downtown Advisory Commission, current member. And the City of Peoria Riverfront Master Planning Committee, Planning Community Advisory Committee, current member. As far as publications, he has Synergy City, Reinventing the Post-Industrial City, the University of Illinois Press. Without further ado, Ray Lees.
Thanks, Leah. I feel like we're speaking of my own Rotary Club. I know so many of you over so many years, and it's great to be back. And some of you had asked about an update on the Asian carp business. I'm still involved with Roy Source with that, and so we'll have to pick another day and give you an update on that. So, but today I really want to focus on obviously the Bob Michel Bridge, and just kind of forewarn you, this is not the IDOT official version of the backstory to the Bob Michel Bridge, because it was an interesting journey for me, and going through this process. Let me just start out by asking, and I don't necessarily like speakers to do this, but all of you that have been across the Bob Michel Bridge, most of you in the room, and you've probably been across the bridge when it was sleeting, raining, snow, whatever, and you probably observed people trying to walk across it in either the sidewalk, or if the sidewalk was full of snow from the plows, they were actually walking on the pavement on the deck of the bridge. And so this my kind of backstory has a couple of different tracks, and so I'm going to just kind of give you some facts initially, and then talk about the genesis and the observations and the action and the outcome to try and the bridge itself was opened in 1993, as some of you may know and remember. I don't know how many of you drove on the old Franklin Street Bridge, the old metal deck and the curve and the kink in the middle and everything. So it was a great addition to our metro area, certainly. And it's about 2,400 square feet, or 2,400 feet long, 62 feet wide from parapet to parapet. I drove it in 60 seconds, staying pretty much at the limit. And you can walk it in 10 to 15 minutes if you're a hustler, or you can stroll it in 15 to 20. I've not ridden a bike across it, so I can't give you a time there, and I have not talked to anybody that has been in a wheelchair or a scooter trying to cross it either. But the project as it was starting here is it's basically the redecking of the bridge, and it was this work was kind of pushed forward with some of the other things that were going on, and so they decided to just kind of wrap it all into one project. And so the redecking and then the 14-foot pathway that is being constructed on it is taking place as well. The original estimate and the number that I had given the people at IDOT originally, and this is from engineering friends of mine that have a pretty good understanding of the scope of the work. It was about 20 million, and it's ended up to be about 24.6 million with the actual bids. And the money was came out of the Rebuild Illinois program, as most of you are aware, that the legislature passed several years ago, and it's set to open and reopen in November of this year. So that's kind of the rundown. The strategy that was talked about initially was kind of weighing the difference between closing it completely and just leaving a pathway for walking and bikes, or to have one lane of traffic and then the pathway. And it was decided that, you know, the 12-month construction period is a lot better in causing inconvenience for all of us to drive around, but if we get the project done quicker. So that's kind of the backstory there. Project location, it does include the intersections on both the East Peoria and the Peoria side. And again, some of you may be aware that there's going to be some changes downtown to Jefferson and Adams, and they're going to be restored to the two-way configuration that they were many years ago. And so all of that is being taken into consideration on the Peoria side. And the East Peoria side, it was a little less of a challenge to kind of reconnect with what is going on their side. And then just real quick, the connections from the pathway standpoint are outlined in yellow. So it is it's not the greatest, but it does connect with the riverfront walkway on the riverfront between the Bob Michel and the McCluggage, or the Murray Baker. And then you can see the East Peoria kind of connection to that trail. So the genesis was really started in a conversation that we were having with the Riverfront Master Planning Committee, and Michael Freilinger, who many of you know with the Downtown Development Corporation, was on the committee with me, as were a number of other people. And as we were talking about what we would want on the riverfront, you know, he mentioned, and I agreed with him, that you know, it has to be a kind of a wow attraction, and kind of the Peoria bean, if you will. And everybody knows the Chicago bean, right? You've been there and taken photographs, everything. So it was just something that you could do and people could experience. And then whether they're residents or whether they're visitors and go away, they say, wow, you know, you should really see this. If you haven't seen it, you need to go to the Peoria Riverfront and see this, experience it. And my initial, you know, kind of follow up, we had a workshop that we put together for the pedestrian bikes and some other planning with some state officials and others down at the Gateway building. And one of the things that I had thrown out related to that was and they've done this in China, and you can actually see it. But have a translucent walkway across basically a glass pathway across the Illinois, and attach it to the Murray Baker Bridge, and all the nice lighting things that Ashley has already provided us with. And from the back of the room, and we had IDOT people in the room too, and the meeting was at the Gateway building, and so from the back table, somebody said, you know, kind of in a tone of, you know, you idiot, that's a state route, that's never going to happen. And so, and then the follow-up was, you know, why don't you try and do something on the Bob Michel? It might be an easier lift. So that's that. So you know, I went from the workshop dummy to thinking about how we could address some of the needs in the Bob Michel and some of the experiences that we've had, and the empathy as you're driving across in a nice warm car, sheltered and everything across the bridge, and seeing people, you know, walking across or biking or in this case in a scooter. And so I'm just going to kind of talk about the need, the speed. The speed is the automobile speeds, then the comfort that we enjoy in our vehicles, and then the fact that the Bob Michel is in no man's land. It's not in East Peoria. It's not in Peoria. It's kind of, you know, who's going to speak for that, and so, and then it was interesting in going back into our and I got to watch the time here because I can speak a while. On this, the need, and I don't know if you can read it there, but basically it says that and this was in our bicycle regional bike plan, it said you can cross the bridge, but it kind of at your own risk. And so, okay, wonderful. Basically what we're looking at for those many years was an elevated sidewalk that was 5 feet wide and 5 foot, what IDOT termed an alternative sidewalk, and basically the painted line, and so it's not really a shoulder, it's just designated space there. And so it was just kind of like, I kind of looked at it like eating an elephant, and then we had to go through and prove the support for the bridge that the region would have, and then documenting the plans, and then not taking no for an answer. And so kind of went through and a lot of this is just kind of basic research that all of us have done when we're trying to promote a project, and that is kind of find the facts and find out what went on and bring it all together and in a consumable form that people cannot deny it, right? And so I did the research, and this is related to the plans surrounding the Bob Michel Bridge and other bridges. So there are 6 plans, there have been 2 studies, and there are 3 policies, state policies that were enacted because of those plans and studies. And so that's kind of the evidence of what the need is from a transportation standpoint. And then as far as automobiles, there's about 17,500 cross it every day, and they did as part of the planning and the study, they did do a pedestrian and bicycle count, but I couldn't find that data for you today. The one thing that I think is an interesting social kind of commentary is that I asked our GIS person, I said, you look at the Illinois River and find out where the other barrier protected pathways are across the Bob Michel. And this is what you came back with. There's one up in Marseille, Illinois, and the other is down in St. Louis. So there's over 200 miles of river that you can't cross in anything other than a motorized vehicle. And I just, you know, when I found that out, I thought, God, what a statement on how we handle transportation for people that can't afford a car or a bus or whatever. So we'll just get into the barrier protected pathway and what is it? And basically it's a pathway that is wide, wider than a sidewalk, and then it actually has a concrete barrier between the pedestrian walkway and the actual automobile traffic. And so that's pretty straightforward. And it kind of looks like this. This is another one where they've actually constructed this, and you can see it's a fairly significant barrier. And you know, there have been instances where cars and large trucks or whatever have hit those, but it's a fairly substantial barrier. And then you can see, I don't know how wide that pathway is, but obviously you can get bikes and people walking on it. this is the sketch, and you can't really see it now because obviously it's not completed and they're still working on it. And this is the eastbound McCluggage Bridge. And now after whatever 10 years of advocacy on the part of pedestrians and bicyclists and others, and acknowledgement of the need for this kind of a crossing opportunity, that it is now in IDOT's design standards. You cannot design a new bridge these days without a pathway. So that's why the McCluggage is doing that. At the time the Bob Michel was designed, that did not exist. So that's why we ended up with the sidewalk and the paint. This is a cross section of the bridge deck, and as it says on the top is the existing alignment, and then the potential alignment that could you could get on that size of a bridge deck. And I have to give a shout out to a couple of engineering friends of mine, George Garib, they're both with Terra Engineering, George Garib, and then Eric Thurgilson. How could I forget that last name? Anyway, two guys at Terra, and I know them both, and they both worked for IDOT at one time, and so I kind of bent their ear and said, "Hey guys, what do you?" So after they got done laughing about it, then they said, "Well, this is what you might be looking at," and they had one of their structural engineers from their Chicago office actually take a look at the documents, and the firm that designed the Bob Michel Bridge is out of business, so there's no reference there. So you had to go back. Interestingly enough, with all of our electronics these days, they had to dig out the paper plans and look at them. So, but that's kind of what they're looking at. And so there's some, as you know, the bridge from driving it, you say, guys, we've got the light poles on the center barrier, and the way those parapets are designed, the sidewalk and the parapet and part of the bridge deck are all the way they constructed it, designed it and constructed it. It's all kind of tied together. So it's a challenge. This is basically what we're going to end up with. And forget the rocks on the other side. Whoever rendered this did not realize that this was a bridge and not on the ground. But that's okay. But it shows you kind of the relative size of the spaces. And they're taking, and I can't remember exactly what the measurements are, but they're taking like a foot here and a foot there, and so the traffic, the barrier or the space on for instance the center barrier is less than what it is now, and the shoulder, the painted shoulder, is not 5 feet, is 3.5 feet. So there's and then the concrete barrier is a foot or so wide, and then 14 feet for the actual pathway. And it's going to be, so we're not going to have two different levels. They're taking out the sidewalk, and everything is going to be on one level. There's not going to be a painted, line down the middle for which direction you're going. It's kind of, let's be nice, and the bicyclists will run around the pedestrians, and hopefully everybody will be able to navigate it in the safe way. This is and I should ask, has anybody been across the temporary pathway? Okay, you may not have much time to do that, because at least according to IDOT, this is on the, as you can probably see, this is on the downriver side. It's on the south side of the bridge, and basically what they've done is put in the concrete barrier that it's not going to look exactly like that, but fairly similar, and it's not going to be temporary. It's going to be forward and solid, and but this allows people to go kind of back and forth now, and as you can see, it's what does it say about the stay off the sidewalks or something. Anyway, nobody was watching that sign when I was they were taking some pictures going across it. But it is interesting, and and I had never walked across the bridge myself when it was in its earlier state. And so in kind of my research on this, I walked across it and found that it's a very, 14 feet. Now, I don't know, that varies a little bit. The guys weren't, when they were laying that out, they weren't exact on the measurements, but it's pretty close to 14 feet. And it's a very comfortable space when you get up there and walking across it. So, and then this is a shot down obviously towards East Peoria. And it was surprising because I went out on picked a nice day to go out for a walk, but I wanted to and nothing against engineers or whatever, but guys, when you're doing something like this, you ought to talk to people who use it, right? Come on, I mean, how can you do something like this without doing that? Well, that's what they do. And so, and then this is looking to Peoria. So now what they're just going to be done relatively soon, and why I asked if you want to go and see the before, you better get out there, because in mid-August they're going to shift it, and they're going to shift it to the final side. I don't know whether they're going to put the concrete barrier up there, but you will be able to actually walk the pathway on the north side of the bridge, and it'll be the same on the same plane, and just that's what it's going to look like. And then you can see they added some temporary lights on this, so you can walk it at night. And then these are some of the characters that are on. I say characters, and not in a derogatory way. It was just really fascinating to me when I was walking up and down there. Number one, to see how many people actually use it, and within a relatively short period of time, as I say, it took me 15 minutes walking both, walking one way and then back the other. And but I found this guy on your left there that you can see he's all rigged up and protected, and he was on one of these little boards that has one wheel in the middle of it, and I think I would need more than a guiding stick to run that thing. But he was on his way to Sunnyland. He was going to use all the trails and go all the way to Sunnyland, and he was just out for a unicycle ride. And I didn't ask him how many times he does it, but I had all of these people that would stop and talk to me. So you'll see some of them didn't want to stop and talk. But all of those that did just thought, oh man, I can't believe this. It's kind of a an experience that they never thought that they would have. And here's a guy, obviously, the guy in blue. He's athletic, riding his bike, and he just rides his bike across a bridge. And both of these guys had done, again. Most of these people that I talked to have crossed the bridge in the previous state, and so they have this sense of comparison between what it was like before and what it will be like. And there's another guy in a motorized bike or a motorized scooter, and the lady that you saw before that I talked to in the red jacket, and this guy, I was crossing the bridge one time, just going, I'll admit, go to East Peoria, the levee district, to get lunch. I should be spending my tax dollars here, but I was going across and I saw these two scooters going in opposite direction on the sidewalk, and so as I was going up the bridge, I could, I saw this going on, and then when I passed them, I was looking in the rearview mirror to see how they were passing, and they passed very slowly, and they got past each other. And then I looked at what the width of these things are, and it's like a little over 2 feet. So, and a lot of these guys hang over. So it's dangerous. And both of these people fell off the sidewalk and onto the pavement. And this guy said that somebody actually stopped and put it back on the sidewalk. And the lady, there was somebody else walking that helped her back on. But if you think about that, and that's why you get a little emotional, because you think when those people fall over, where are their heads? They're about 6 inches from our wheels. And I just think, when I think about that, I think, geez. So, and then so those are folks. And then you can see another guy passing. He did not want to talk to us. Passing the duct tape guy. And then this guy over here is actually a traffic engineer working for, no, boy, I'm gonna hurry up here. And he was working for the Mass Transit District. And so he was over at the transfer station doing some work, and his wife dropped him off. They were staying at the Embassy Suites, and so she left him and said, well, you'll come back across the bridge, right? Because he can do that. And so he was doing that. And then those are a couple of guys. One of them just lost his car to repossession. So the guy picking up his pants, he just lost his car, and so they were just kind of saying, well, you got to go over to Walmart and do some shopping. This other guy here in the red outfit is a marketing professor at Bradley, and somebody from Bradley may recognize him. I've met him before, but he takes his, whatever this is, 4-wheeler or tricycle or something, and he goes all the way to Morton. On the trail and he lives up in the West Bluff by Bradley. And so, and then these are the guys that guy didn't want to talk. And then these guys just walked by us and they didn't want to talk to us either. So but most of the people were really, and then another guy that I didn't take a picture of, that stopped when I asked him, had just gotten out of prison, and he was riding his bike. He can't get a license, so he's riding his bike to a job in East Peoria. And so again, all of them very, very grateful that this is happening. It took a lot of just kind of connecting with people. And when I was first pursuing it started out, eating the elephant was a feasibility study, and I was trying to get with George and Eric with Tara to frame up a scope of work for a feasibility study to see if to do the engineering study, see if this was even feasible. And that was about a $50,000 lift. And so, okay, we can try and find money within Tri-County. We have different funds that we can access for different kinds of planning exercises. So and at that time, there are people in even my office that were saying, why waste your time? You're just not going to move this issue. And I thought, I'm old enough now, and I've been, beaten up enough times. I say, okay, I don't care that you're saying this. It's still worth pursuing. So we did, and they said, well, what is your, who's behind it? Well, I called everybody from Bushwhacker, Illinois Cycle, Embassy Suites, Adam White, down at all of these. So there's about 30 people that I called, even what's his name, Joe Russell up in Washington, got them on both sides of the river, public, private, park districts, everybody. And I came up and I had a list of about 30 people. Or 30 people, organizations that I actually talked to. I didn't do email, didn't do letters, didn't do smoke signals. I actually talked to people on the phone, said, hey, this is what's going on, this is what we'd like to do, can you are you on board with it? Some of them had to take it to their boards and ask them whatever. And I'm not going to say, I really shouldn't say anything about Caterpillar, but Caterpillar's not on the list. And I talked to them and they said, well, you know, who's behind this? They say, well, I'm behind it, Henry. I said, well, that's not enough. So yeah, you know, do the scope, why do we do it? Who else is there? Who it went off into the black hole of the executive offices, never to be heard from again. So I never did hear back from Caterpillar. They, you know, before, as some of you know, you could go up to the 7th floor and you could talk to a person and say, hey, you guys ought to get behind something like this, obviously for your employees and everything else. So so it was kind of a tough grind along the way, and so we got those 30 stakeholders, and then I kind of summarized all this stuff because I thought it'd be important for the communities, for Peoria and East Peoria to kind of be the primary proponents. And so I got Ross Black from Peoria and Ty Livingston from East Peoria to sign a letter that I wrote that would go to that I was going to send to Ryan Spain and Jahan Gordon Booth. And so he did. I sent that in. And it was at the time that they were negotiating, they were cutting up the Rebuild Illinois pie down in Springfield. And, you know, just timing is kind of everything. And they had this big pot, and I'm sure that Jahan and Ryan were looking at it and say, we need to get a piece of this, you know, for Peoria, for us. And I don't know if there's any cigar smoking in the room or whatever down in Springfield, but I was coming back from visiting my son and daughter-in-law in Louisville, and Sunday, and got a call from Ryan, and he was saying, look, because what I didn't put in the letter was what the estimated budget was. So Ryan called me and said, hey, what was that number? And I said, 20 million. And so he said, okay, thanks. And then I can't remember what it was, 2 or 3 weeks later, we got the call and that we got the money. And there were a few kind of, holy shit. And because everybody was just kind of, God, right, you know, you're a nice guy and everything, but you know, snowball's chance. And you know, and IDOT, and I'm not going to say anything about District 4's office or whatever, because they're up there, their ears and work. They don't have enough engineers. And so their leadership there was, when I would talk to them, was no time, right? This is never going to make it. It's never going to happen. So just forget about it. And as I say, got plenty of things to do, but this is something that I thought was important, and it was kind of a, so we'll see. And then the other thing is, you know, and I wasn't down there, but one of our planners was downtown walking under the bridge on a Sunday, and this was several weeks ago. And she said she heard some music from the bridge, and she said she looked around, and there was a group of people up on the bridge in this pathway on a Sunday afternoon, playing music and having a good old time. So you never know, you know, and obviously that would happen if there was just a sidewalk there. I mean, people. So this space is doing what I think it should be doing. Not that we, you know, that the cops would, for East Peoria and Peoria, would like to see parties up there every evening, but it just goes to show you how the public will respond to new environments like that. And so we had to go through kind of a negotiation on, you know, that East Peoria will clean the snow up to the middle of the walkway, and then Rick Powers and Peoria will be responsible for cleaning the snow on the Peoria side. So you know, we'll have to see how that works, and but it's got to be better. It's got to be better than the way it was. So anyway, that's the story. Any questions or Thanks, Bob.
Have you ever been on the High Line in New York City? Which is an
No, on the
elevated track?
Brooklyn Bridge and all that. No, I have not.
It's really cool.
Yeah, as I understand. Yeah, it's a good.
Ray, I just want to thank you for your tenacity, because as someone who has kind of had a dealings with IDOT and multiple stakeholders, it's not easy. And I just want to thank you for your personal investment in this, because it's a great asset for our community. So thank you personally.
Thanks. Pardon me?
You getting the enclosed structure?
Well, no, we're not. But you know, it's interesting you asked that, Greg, because I'll put the control guys here. We talked about having it being shaded, putting a shade on it. And this was after we had the conversation with the engineers. And boy, you can't, just so you know, you can't talk to the engineers. Once they're under contract, boy, you can't talk to them. IDOT will not let you talk to them. It's, you know, they got protected by CIA and everything else. You know, I wanted to just call up one of the engineers and say, hey, what do you know, what about this or that? And I got a call back from Karen Gorski, said, right, don't talk to them. They can't talk to you.
Wow.
But we had talked about lighting and having a, you know, some sort of a shade that would throw the snow off one way or the other, and that was just too much scope addition.
So Ray, it sounds like this is a done deal. So you don't need Caterpillar at this point?
No, there's not gonna be Caterpillar black anywhere near this guy. Yeah.
I know some people.
Yeah, well, they should participate, you know, obviously, and appreciate. I think this is done for both communities, and but anyway,